All right. Yeah, let's get into the movie review for this week. And continuing with the theme for this month being, Irish, we'll be watching. We are going to be reviewing The Departed. Of course, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt
Jack
Damon,
Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson, Alec Baldwin, Mark
Martin Sheen.
Wahlberg, Martin Sheen. Yeah, this movie is like totally star-studded.
Star-studded, baby.
Yeah. And so yeah, let me give you guys the synopsis before we get into it. All right, South Boston cop Billy Costigan goes undercover to infiltrate the organization of gangland chief Frank Costello. As Billy gains the mobster's trust, a career criminal named Colin Sullivan infiltrates the police department and reports on its activities to his syndicate bosses. When both organizations learn they have a mole in their midst, Billy and Colin must figure out each other's identity to save their own lives.
Yeah, this was. I don't even know where to start with this movie because it's just this constant. You're on the edge of your seat the entire movie.
Right, there's an unease to this movie where you kind of feel it on both sides. You feel it for Leonardo DiCaprio's Billy Costigan, who's undercover with the mobsters, but then you also feel it with Matt Damon's Colin Sullivan as he's the mole for Jack Nicholson's Frank Costello.
Right, and I think it's also kind of a even with the unlike a lot of movies of this type where you're kind of left guessing who the mole is, or you're kind of like, who is it? It's and you're trying to figure it out as an audience.
Mm-hmm.
Scorsese here gives everything to the audience. We know who the characters are. We know who the mole is. We know who's infiltrating the mob. We have all this information, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you would think that would be like, well, what's the point of the movie, or why would we watch it? And it's like, but no, it's still tension filled, and it's like, how are they going to get through this situation?
Right, it's right because we are given all the information up front. It's basically a cat and mouse game. Uh, but
Exactly,
it,
yeah.
but but it's this weird thing where each of the two characters, Colin Sullivan and Billy Costigan, they're both simultaneously the mouse and the cat.
Yeah, they are.
And so yeah, it has like this weird kind of oscillation between the two, which I think is just great for this particular story.
And yeah, they now I'm trying to think of like how I want to like. That was an aspect of the movie I thought was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You have and you even have like some of the cat and mouse play with you have uh Martin Sheen's Captain Queenan and
Mm-hmm.
Mark Wahlberg playing what was it what the hell was his name? It was Sergeant
Sergeant Doyle,
Dillingham.
or
Was it Doyle or Dillingham?
quick check. Oh, Dingham
Dingham, yeah.
or Dignam.
And obviously like they because they knew something was going on,
Mm-hmm.
um and they were kind of like trying to they knew someone was in the state police as a mole.
Mm-hmm.
um they figured it out pretty early, and they were trying to get the big boss Frank Costello, because for he's doing something where he's selling like secrets over to the Chinese, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of relevant to today's discussion. But that's
Mm-hmm.
uh, and so I mean, there's kind of like you're trying to figure out like what exactly is Frank Costello trying to do, and I
Mm-hmm.
guess that is more of the mystery um of the movie that you're trying to figure out, and um Billy is trying to towards the end, like um obviously this movie goes through quite a long period of time,
Mm-hmm.
and Billy is just like, listen, they're gonna catch on to me, I'm going to die, you need to
Mm-hmm.
get me out of this. And the thing is, only two people knew of Billy's identity, and that
Mm-hmm.
was Kathy Queenan and Dingham. And of course, they ended up killing Captain Queenan,
Mm-hmm.
dropping him off a roof. It's like, whew, yuck.
Yeah, it's probably most brutal death, most brutal death ever.
That was nasty, dude. Like that felt real.
Right, because also because the age of Martin Sheen and how he's kind of like he kind of reminds you of a grandpa. It's like, oh no, he killed my grandpa.
Yeah.
So it's like, especially because like they know who he is, right? They know he's a captain on the Boston State Police. He's not just like a patrolman. He's a fucking captain.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like
Um,
the lengths that the cops are gonna go to catch his killers. Like they basically they're basically dead and they don't even know yet.
yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Um, were there any particular scenes or like characters that you really like fell in love with during, or that like really got to you watching this?
it's hard to say. It's really hard to pinpoint one singular character as being stand out to me because I think I this isn't just me like trying to dodge the question or being diplomatic. I really like every single character in this movie. Like, I think every character was cast perfectly and they all played their role uh, to perfection.
Even yeah, to be honestly, even like kind of like the side characters who were not like
Mm-hmm.
they were only there for a short time. God damn, they were perfect. Like it
Yeah,
didn't feel like
like from like shop owners to like Costello's like Dame. Just like
yeah.
everybody, it was just perfect. Like they played it exactly right.
I don't think I've seen a movie that well cast
Mm-hmm.
before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, because even like we've looked at some of the other movies this month, and like, wow, this was kind of out of place. Like we looked at The Quiet Man. John Wayne is out of place in that film. You
Yeah,
have Miller's Crossing, where it's not that it's poorly acted. It didn't work for me.
right. It was just
Then
like
you,
it was like a drummer who was just like maybe a half step off beat.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
And then
this movie
Boondock,
is like, oh yeah, Boondock Saints.
Boondock, that was, I mean, I think a well cast movie. But
Mm-hmm.
it was not a movie that was highly regarded for a long time. Um, but then you get this movie, holy crap, dude! Like every character, from the top down was perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and I mean this was the movie that introduced not just myself but to the world. Vera Farmiga, she played what's her face, the psychiatrist chick.
Oh, yeah, Megan, I think was her name.
Oh, Madeline.
Madeline, yeah,
Yeah.
Madeline.
I thought she was a. I thought she was. It was really interesting because I mean, beyond just Vera Farmiga being like a tasty slice. Um, I thought it was really interesting that she was both like she was the confidant for both the of these men who who were I guess kind of different sides of the same coin.
Yes, that was they essentially were kind of the same person, just on different sides.
Yeah, and then
And
yeah,
and
the commonality
she
point
was,
was this was her.
yeah,
There
because
was like points
she,
where there was points where she was even though uh, Colin Sullivan wasn't her her patient, she would kind of put on the therapist hat for him. There was a scene
right,
where like there's they try to make love and he couldn't get it up and she was kind of trying to like be reaffirming and it's like oh it's not a big deal it happens to a lot of guys
right.
and it's kind of and like in kind of in a similar way when she has like her I think one of the first meetings that she has with Billy Costigan she's kind of saying like oh yeah a lot of people they can't handle the outside it's not unusual. He's using the same kind of language.
Yeah, and it's like they were. I think the pressure of the situations they were both in were causing these problems. Yet the balance between them was her.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like this calm presence that they both needed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I kind of like that. As far as like love tryst goes, I think that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like this one was actually really well done. It didn't feel like a ooh nasty to me.
Yeah,
Um,
no, absolutely.
as far as like scenes go, I think one of my favorites was the where Billy starts to um catch he's on the trail um of Chris and
Who's Chris?
oh,
You're talking
I'm
about
sorry,
Colin?
yeah, Colin, sorry.
Oh, you're talking about
It's
like after the porno theater.
yeah. And so they're at the porno theater, and he doesn't see Colin's character, but he sees Frank Costello and knows that like that's probably the mole.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have like this uh, scene where like they're onto each other, and the Billy's cell phone rings, which kind of gives him away and creates this scene where so you have Colin over like hugging behind a truck with his with a knife, and he ends up stabbing that Chinese guy. Uh, and
Right.
yeah, it's just yeah, that was just like that whole like scene was just like oh man, it was just had a lot of tension in it, and it's like oh you want to oh you want him to get caught.
Mm-hmm. Right. You kind of want a quick resolution for Billy's character because he's like he's living this dual life and he's constantly under this pressure and like if he's like discovered or found out then it's literally his life. Um, but when it doesn't happen, just like oh god, it's like pass me the tums. My ulcer's like flaring up from all of this stress from this movie. Um, uh, and but it's like, but it's funny because like as much you really are invested in like this cat and mouse game that they're engaged in, and like when I think when appropriate, you kind of cheer, you kind of quietly cheer for Colin, because he's like, when he, lets Frank know about like the cops and like Tails or like they're coming to raid the drug processing house. So you kind of like do a quiet cheer. It's like, oh right, they're getting away with it. But you're also like, dang, they're getting away with it.
Yeah, it's this we it's Scorsese gives you this like weird feeling in that sense, where it's like you want him to get away with it, but you're also like wanting him to get caught at the same time.
Mhm.
And it's almost like
Yeah.
both outcomes would
Mhm.
be great.
Right. Um, just also we're talking about how Madeline was kind of this the balancing point for these two men. Jack Nicholson's Frank Costello was exactly the same because he was both father figures to Colin and for Billy. Um,
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, you're right.
and and it's funny because Frank was initially trying to get Billy to not get into the life. Constantly referencing his father. There's like that scene where they're at the restaurant and Frank brings up his dad and he was like saying like, oh yeah, if your dad saw me sitting here with you, uh, he
It,
he'd get through like three of my guys just to cut my throat, and he could do it. What's more,
yeah,
and so uh, you know so so in that as in that because Frank had such like that kind of respect for Billy Senior. Um, he tried to talk Billy Jr. out of it, out of becoming part of this world, becoming like what his uncle Jackie was. He was part of this life, and he ended up dead. Uh, but he I think he because he had respect for his father, and that I think he saw something more in uh, Billy Jr. That he actually even I think he earnestly did try to talk him out of getting out of the life.
yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah, no, I
which
had
which kind of contrasts to Colin when in the beginning of the film where he openly encourages him to come and become part of this life.
yeah, like similar to um uh yeah, it's kind of like this weird like contrast, like kind of connecting contrast between the two, encouraging one person to to stay out of this life, and yet at the same time encouraging the other one uh, to move in, and yeah, just a lot of depth to the characters, a lot of great tension, and were you satisfied with the ending?
Hmm. I think I think initially when I first saw this movie, I was very taken aback at how it ended, and I didn't really appreciate um, how it ended. But now that I'm a little bit older, and there's a little bit of distance from watching it, or and since I've watched it again, I'm more appreciative of how it ended.
Um, yeah, because
Why?
it's kind of, well, I would say because you have, because it looks like Colin's gonna get away with everything, and you're like, I don't know if I'm satisfied with that ending,
Mhm.
and you're thinking like towards the end it's like, okay, it's ending, obviously, like after everything that went down, um he's kind of alone,
Mhm.
you know and it's like, all right, well, you're like, all right, he got away with it. It's like, I guess he's gonna just kind of continue on, but we forget that there's another character that knows, uh, um, who probably who gets the information on, who exactly Colin is, and we almost forget
Mhm.
about that character, and that was Sergeant Dingham,
Mhm.
with Mark Wahlberg's character, and he ends up killing him. and that that's the end of the movie, and you get this shot of like the rat crawling across the rail,
Hmm.
um, in in that window view,
Hmm.
and it's like I actually thought that was actually like a good ending. It's just like yeah, because he was not a good guy, and a lot of his actions caused a lot of death and destruction, and for him to live happily ever after, I think would have been a terrible ending. He had
Right.
to get
Well,
his
it
comeuppance.
was like it was kind of like cosmic justice, you know.
Yeah.
And and I think and I'm starting to think that that letter that Billy gave to Madeline, I think that was instructions. That was like a copy of the file of like one of the recordings that Frank left him that she was supposed to give to Sergeant Dingham.
Yes, I think that was yeah, I think that's definitely what it was. And if anything happened to him, it was kind of instructions on what to do with it.
Right. Um, oh, do you think that she was pregnant with Billy's kid?
Oh, it was definitely one of them.
Well, I think it was more Billy because I think that last time that she saw him when she gave him when he gave her that letter to hold on to. I think like she was like she wanted to say something and he stopped and said, "Hey, if it's really that important, wait to tell me in like 2 weeks." She never got. But then she I think to kind of save her ass in a way, she revealed it to Colin as his kid.
Well,
Before she knew that before she knew what he really was.
I think you have and I think you're right that it's Billy's kid.
Mhm.
And we're kind of given that setup. We kind of just talked about this. We saw problems where Colin has he can't get it up, right?
Mhm.
So it makes sense that she kind of behind Colin's back starts sleeping with Billy,
Mhm.
who clearly doesn't have that problem.
Right, and it's really interesting that uh, like here are these two men, and they're both essentially lying to uh,
Everyone,
Madeline. Yeah, well, everyone, but then specifically to Madeline. Even when Billy is in the therapy session, he's not being 100% honest with her. But
right?
but in a way, he's more honest with her than Colin is with her.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because
Right?
the thing
I
is, I
think.
think he's not being honest about that he is undercover with the mob. The
Mhm.
tension that he is sharing with her, like the
Mhm.
stress that he's under, that's all
Mhm.
real.
Right. Yeah, as opposed to Colin, who like even when Costello calls the his apartment and she picks up the phone, he immediately tries to lie and obfuscate. Say, oh no, this is for work. This like and so he wasn't being honest with her. I mean,
Right,
not that he would necessarily have to be because he's a policeman. So sometimes work you can't necessarily discuss everything about work, but she does kind of call him out on it. He's like, you're lying to me. So you're not being honest with me right now. And even though like
yeah,
he's like trying to assure us like no I swear it's like about work, and then she kind of for the sake of like keeping the peace she kind of lets it go, but that she still like has that lingering feelings like this guy's not being honest with me.
right. And I think that's also part of the reason why she ended up hooking up with Billy too,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's and she, it's just like, oh, I still have this lease on this apartment for 3 more weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like if you really like if you were didn't have like that feelings towards him, like where it's like, oh, it's there's this disconnect between them. Why would
Mhm.
she even be at that apartment anymore?
Right. Right. I mean, even though when Billy goes, like the night that they hook up, she's supposedly like packing up her stuff to move in with Colin, but it's she's kind of dragging her feet, as it were. I mean, she still has 3 weeks.
Really
You
dragging
know,
feet because
yeah, it
it
doesn't
takes
it
one
doesn't even look
day.
like it looks like she just started packing up her stuff.
Yeah, it's just like, and it's like, what does it take? Like a day, maybe 2 days to pack everything up? Like, yeah,
And
so
even if
she,
like yeah, even if she is like a uh, state appointed like therapist or whatever, and her schedule is not likely that busy where she can't spare a few hours at night to pack up things.
or hell, even hire someone to pack up all that stuff for her and ship it over.
Right.
So yeah, man, it's just, to be honest, this is not the what I thought we were going to talk about concerning this movie, but I actually think that when you brought that up, it's like, man, that's very interesting. How like, yeah, you have Billy and Colin, and yet and they have two of the characters that are pretty much connecting them in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
And so it's like it's weird. All these guys are on opposite sides,
Mhm.
and there's all this tension. Yet at the same time, they're so connected.
Right. Or yeah, or it's just like a lot of mirroring going on because
Yeah,
as the kind of tyrannical the tyrannical malevolent father figure in Frank Costello, but then you have the benevolent father figure in Captain Quinlan.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And then and then you have like the two sons, you know,
Oh, and then
kind of
you
for both of them, like
and you and
because Quinlan because Colin was under Quinlan, so in a way he was so for Colin, Quinlan was kind of like a father figure. Although it might be, I don't know, maybe is it Cain and Abel or maybe even Prodigal Son narrative for those two.
yeah, yeah. Well, I was saying you can even like match up um Dingham with Frenchie.
That's right. Yeah, so there's a lot of mirroring going on uh, on both the sides.
Yeah. God,
Quickly,
this
what was the thing that you thought that we were gonna be talking about, or what was the
Oh
thing
no, I
that
just
really
thought
caught
like
your attention?
no, I was just thinking like more of kind of talking about more of the cat and mouse stuff.
Ah,
As far as like, the tension that's built like obviously throughout the movie.
hmm,
But I think this is more of the interesting subject.
hmm, agreed. Yeah, I mean, I love the cat and mouse games too, but then yeah, this duality of between the characters and like the mirroring, it's all very interesting.
Yeah, I think this is like the fourth or fifth time I've seen this movie,
Hmm.
and I like it every time I watch it. It's such a good one. It's one of the greats. I actually
Oh,
think
for
that
sure.
this might be my second favorite Scorsese film.
What would be your first?
Oh, Goodfellas.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah.
I mean, how can it not be Goodfellas?
Right. Oh man, Goodfellas is so good.
But yeah, no, this is a very close
Wait,
second.
did Scorsese do Casino too? Yes, he did.
Yeah,
He did.
yes, he did. Yeah, good movie. I like it too.
Good
But
movie. Yeah.
Goodfellas is his magnum opus. This is a close second.
Yeah. 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 Goodfellas is so great.
You think I'm funny?
So how am I funny? Like, do I amuse you?
Um,
All right. Yeah.
this is
Anything else you want to add to?
no. I think that's all I got on The Departed.
All right. All right. Yeah. That's all I got to say too. Let's give our ratings, and we'll call it a night.
This is a 4.5 for me.
4.5. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I just like I said, all the stuff, all the the casting, fantastic. Cinematography is really good. Um, the just the character connection
Mm-hmm.
is really good. I love I love a good cat and mouse kind of spy thriller,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and like I said, this is Scorsese's second best film, almost number one, but it just you can't.
I mean,
Goodfellas
yeah.
just
I mean, based on your opinion.
yeah, based on my opinion, yeah.
Based on your.
Um, but yeah, no, this movie is great. Has a lot of rewatchability value.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4.5 as well. This was a phenomenal effort on the part of Martin Scorsese. Again, I mean, everything that pretty much you said. The casting was perfect. The performances were just spot on. They were just like everything was done right. Um, just like just like that half is really just like nitpicking kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Doesn't even uh, merit being mentioned. It's like so like ticky tack stuff. So yeah, so 4.5 for me as well. All right, that there you have it. That's our review of The Departed. It's across the board 4.5 from both me and Rob. Definitely Circle of Jerks recommended. Watch this movie. It is a great one.